Greetings and welcome to the first Maisha Kazini conversation of this year. Happy New Year to everyone, both our subscribers and those who regularly listen to us. So we are back, starting the year with a conversation with Dr. Mordecai Ogada about the recent events. And specifically, we want to talk about an article he has often cited and recommended, which is an article by Professor Patrick Wolfe entitled Settler Colonialism and the Elimination of the Native. So, Karibu Ogada.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Good to be here.
Happy New Year. So, I've been seeing you talking about this article. So, maybe you could just say, why would a carnivore ecologist be reading an article on settler colonialism?
Yes, thanks. It came in a roundabout way. The early 2000s, there was a buzz in the scientific community, the conservation community, about the rediscovery of the ivory-billed woodpecker in the southern United States. This bird supposedly went extinct somewhere in the 1940s or 50s. And some people reported to have seen it. So there was excitement, millions of dollars grants pouring into universities to investigate whether this was true. So these Ivy League universities had received all this money, and there was excitement putting together research teams, etc. Around the time I visited Princeton and Cornell as well. And if you looked at their very well funded ornithology programs and departments, they had huge collections. Ironically, I was wondering how they were specialized in this. They had so many specialists in these birds that had been extinct for over 60 years. Then I found that the expertise was from huge collections of mounted dead preserved specimens of the said birds. They had hundreds of ivory-billed woodpeckers in their collections, and they still do. And I was sort of taken aback because everyone's wondering how this bird went extinct, and I'm like, okay, so here they are. You guys killed them all. Even in the course of studying, they couldn't find a way to study these birds without just shooting them.
And
killing them, trapping them, and collecting. So the sort of early settler days, if you can call settler days in the United States, were consumptive, cruel, depraved. Even those who claimed to be high class, educated people or scientists, it was all about killing. This was similar to what Roosevelt did on his scientific collections during his trip to Africa, early 20th century. So
when
then,
was it tens or hundreds of specimens?
No, about there were 5,000 and about 5,100 specimens.
Who killed the 5,000 rhinos in Ukambani? That was somebody.
That was A.J. Hunter. That was actually later after Roosevelt. This was 1940s. He was actually contracted by the colonial government to kill the rhinos in Makueni to make it habitable for white settlers.
How are rhinos disturbing him?
No, it was the actually government. He was contracted and he was paid per rhino. And his name still persists in the place called Hunter's Lodge in Kiboko. That was where he was based. So this thing goes on, and in looking at these specimens, I discovered the passenger pigeon.
Did you know about this before this particular encounter? Had you heard of these conversations?
No. Actually, my interest was in ecology, in the science of it.
Yeah.
Trying to find my way forward in conservation and looking at what are the global trends, sort of trying to find a way to jump on the global conservation bandwagon as a young student. So I saw the passenger pigeon, and this opened my eyes to what is one of the most tragic story of extinction in recorded human history. The population of this bird was 5 billion, at least 5 billion individuals in North America. And folklore has it that the sun would be blacked out by the density of the flocks as they migrated. And in 150 years from when Europeans arrived in North America and settled until 1914, they killed them all. Extinction. There was no bird flu. There was no pandemic through the population. There was no poisoning or any such mass killing mechanism. They didn't even have machine guns. They had rifles. Shoot, kill, reload. 5 billion.
5 billion times.
The skill, dedication, commitment to killing required to do that is mind-boggling with the rudimentary firearms which were present then.
There was a time, you know, how I started getting interested in this is because you mentioned it. So I looked up an article about it, and they were talking of nestings, that there was one incident where 1 million birds were shot in a nesting. Some were exported, others were not. But what's a nesting, and what exactly were they talking about?
This was a migratory species, and with the seasons in temperate lands, they'd obviously nest and reproduce at certain times of the year. So they'd migrate in mass, and then when the season, wherever the nesting season or temperature, whatever came, found them, they'd settle and nest. They'd settle in such huge numbers, trees would even break from their weight. So they'd be like 1 million birds concentrated in a forest somewhere, or in a few trees even. And they'd be nesting, brooding, building nests, sitting on eggs, whatever. And those who enjoyed killing them most, this was the perfect opportunity. Just go and sit down there with your rifle and just shoot.
No.
Until you get tired and just go to sleep. And there'd be so many, like basically you'd shoot and you wouldn't miss. It's like impossible to shoot up.
Traumatized, eh?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think even for the most depraved person, you'd get tired of doing it. I mean, yeah, you'd get tired of doing it. The most enjoyable things I do, I want to do it for more than 3 hours. I'm tired. But this went on until they lost them all. And the last one, here's the irony, the other part about acquisition. The last that died in captivity.
They were hoping it would reproduce as a
probably bird. Yeah. It's probably how they killed off the 60 million bison, and then the last 27 or so were taken into captivity to be bred up. So it's a depravity that seeks to acquire nature in a certain way. So this is when I started looking at how cruel is settler colonialism.
What did you feel when you saw these drawers of dead birds? Oh Lord,
it's unfathomable. I mean, I personally, I just can't understand it. I find it disgusting. Why that many? I'm excited to see a collection of a drawer full of birds of different kinds. The way scientific specimens are collected, there's 2 of this, 2 of this, 2 of this, maybe a male and a female, and not more than 3. Maybe because sometimes there's one type specimen that's never touched, and 2 that might be used to make measurements and to study in different ways. But they had just drawers of the same species. I mean, the bird life in Kenya is far more diverse than what it is in North America. And even at our National Museum, we have 2-3 specimens of each species, even the very common ones. We don't have, no one wants to keep those many. It's a waste of space anyway. So then I started wondering about this mentality. And then you go into reptiles, herpetology and all that, and you find all these rare species endemic to Madagascar or someplace, and you're told there are a few hundred, and you open a drawer and there's 40 of them there.
In the US?
Yes, in a university, supposedly in a place of educated people. Some of the most the most egregious killings of wildlife are done by scientists who say they are collecting. They are collecting. And it's because, again, the carelessness also comes from the mentality that when a species is getting rarer and more endangered, the funding available to study it goes up proportionally because it's so rare. And the guy who's the specialist
becomes
his salary is well a superstar. Side salary, tenure, research grants, all that stuff. Those things go to people who study the rarest things. So it's actually, extinction is very profitable in the scientific community in terms of papers, salaries, grants, etc.
It's death. They're talking
Yes,
about
it is death. It is death. And I will tell you for a fact that wildlife biologists, the way the sector is set up, wildlife ecology, it is not set up for you to care about the animal. It's about for you to learn, learn and acquire it somehow. Learn about it and acquire it.
And then what? Kill? Where is the killing? I know it's not supposed to make sense, but why?
And it's often, this is why we are so weak on any human dimension, because the way we study wildlife biology is sort of meant to dehumanize you. So you shouldn't care about how you're treating the animal. I mean, look at what was going on with Olpejeta, where the continuous egregious abuse of those the so-called northern white rhinos, being put under anesthesia every day, constantly harvesting ova from the females, constantly harvesting sperm from the male, constantly taking. I mean, this animal was being put down every other day. When Sudan died, I said, sort of, thank God that animal is free from human cruelty. What they're doing there is cruelty. And they say it's for survival of the species. What about this animal? What are you doing to this animal every day? It's the same neurosis you find with collaring of animals today. You see someone darting an elephant, whatever, saying we want to find out what elephant home range sizes are. Who doesn't know what elephant home range sizes are? We've known for about 70 years. So why is someone collaring an elephant today? If not just the neurosis that comes with needing to somehow own that animal. Why is anyone collaring a lion today? Don't we know what lion home range sizes are? But it's a neurosis. And it goes together with settler colonialism, because you'll find that this type of interest in wildlife is now being pursued by scientists, but it wasn't started by scientists. It was started by megalomaniacs and settler colonists like Roosevelt and John Muir and those kind of people. And it was started by the people these were the same people who killed off huge herds of bison as a way of subduing the Native Americans by getting rid of their food source. So if any conservation thinking comes from that sort of mental place, it's fatally flawed. It can't go anywhere.
So what led you to, how did you eventually find this article by Patrick Wolfe?
What led me to look for it is the fact that I started noticing that everywhere I went, conservation conferences, different universities, talk about African wildlife, it was all white people.
Mm-hmm.
I was always either the only Black person or in the minority. Mm. And in conferences, even conferences where there were many Black people, none of them would speak, or very few would speak. And that's when I started then I started getting pushback, especially when I'd give an opinion on conservation policy in Africa or in Kenya. I'd get pushback from people, some highly qualified, some not qualified at all. And then I realized that there is a racial colonial angle to this conservation business. And that's when I started reading more into the history of how the colonies were settled and how conservation structures were set up, not just in Kenya, but other colonies. And in that course of that reading, that's when I came across Patrick Wolfe's work. And there was this, in fact, I first heard that there was that one quote when we were talking about invasive species, and that's when I got into reading about Australia, Hawaii, and other places, and then I stumbled on the quote that settler colonialism is a structure, it's not an event, it's a structure. That quote from Patrick Wolfe, and then reading up on his stuff, and
made sense.
Yeah, everything made sense. I really wanted to try and contact him, but he passed on in I think
2016.
2000.
I think.
Yeah.
So where does big conservation lie when you were writing it? Because you also wrote it like a sort of like a eureka moment, kind of.
Catharsis, really.
Was it around that time you discovered his article, or before?
It was before that. It was before that, and
what was before?
The discovery of his article.
Okay.
The discovery of his article was before that, and after I read that, then I sort of realized, okay, so I maybe have to work hard, really try and make a difference. Then I'll get recognition that I deserve, despite the biases in conservation. And then that didn't happen. Then I realized that especially in Kenya, if any Black conservationist in Kenya, there needs to be a colonial or white or foreign agenda that you're serving. And I mean all of them. I discovered that when I really got into working for Laikipia Wildlife Forum. And then I realized, oh, this is what it's about. My work, there's no problem with my work, but the problem is my position, my opinions, and my skin color is threatening a structure. It's challenging a structure.
Yes.
It's challenging a structure. And that's when, because I suffered a lot wondering what's wrong, why am I working so hard and so many people are fighting me? But when I started reading, and I've said this before, until I started reading history and philosophy, none of this conservation stuff made sense. And even today, if anybody in conservation who doesn't read history or philosophy, a Black person in conservation, don't read history and philosophy, useless. You're just one of their kitchen totos, really.
That's why they are separating the humanities from the sciences.
Yes, so relentlessly.
Don't make those connections.
Yeah, and because these things don't exist in isolation. Conservation is a human issue; it's not an animal issue. But we keep thinking that we keep treating it like it's an animal issue. And we keep failing in everything. Even recently, this hyenas conflict with hyenas, etc.
Yeah.
A journalist talked to me a short while ago about that thing, and I spent a lot of time telling him that if you want to address this thing, first thing they have to address is where is Kiambu County government disposing of solid waste. Thika, Juja is a center of this illegal slaughter of donkeys, and they just dump heads, hooves, and intestines all over the place. It constantly happens. Yes, this brings in hyenas. A few years ago, there was an attacks on people in Isiolo because of poor hygiene at Isiolo slaughterhouse. They were just draining out blood into the ditch out there and throwing out stuff. And this went on until Isiolo built a new proper slaughterhouse out of town with proper soak pits, septic tanks, and this kind of thing. But no one wants to talk about that. We talk about foolish things like talking to hyena, I don't know what, don't go wherever, don't walk around at night and these kind of things. It's about hygiene. Even individual people always eat nyama choma and just throw the bone down there without second thought. You slaughter a chicken, throw the head there. You slaughter a goat, you throw the skin there. And this is the kind of thing, because if we can't tie it in with the humanities, we are going nowhere.
It's a deep selfishness, which is kind of what you're saying about even the extermination of these species.
Yeah.
It's an inability to think about ourselves in the environment. We live as if we are the only ones on the planet.
We think about ourselves and the environment.
Yeah.
Like me and this computer, we are separate things. So the environment and this strange thing that they call nature.
Yeah.
That nature is something out there. I'm not part of it. Nature is under pressure because of too many human beings. Human beings didn't land from the moon. They're part of this nature. Putting fences around nature, whether it's parks or forests or whatever, to keep you because that is nature and this is human settlement. So treating humans as separate from nature is a white thing. It's a white European mentality. And we are struggling so much. We've been struggling for 100 and more years to impose that here. And that is why it doesn't work. That's why we still need guns to enforce conservation, because what we are doing is not natural.
What I've read so far is that the United States was at ground zero of settler colonialism.
Yeah.
In fact, they provided the model of what other people did elsewhere.
Yes. And they provided the model for Roosevelt provided model for national parks, protected areas. Because they started it with John Muir in Yosemite and Yellowstone. The whole idea of displacing indigenous populations to make room for something you call nature is an American idea. And it was started by two racist megalomaniacs who knew nothing about ecology.
Were they hunters?
No, they were just, it was a self-actualization thing.
Ew.
Roosevelt was a hunter, but John Muir it was about self-actualization, the greatness of man. He was a son of a clergyman, so Christianity was even part of it, that this is God's creation, it's clean, it's beautiful. Human beings are a stain on it. Particularly native non-white human beings are a stain on it. So Christianity there's a strong Christian sort of flavor to it. And John Muir's writings have lots and lots of biblical references.
So the bison, maybe we can just mention that before going to the bison story. The bison are like buffaloes, yeah?
Yeah.
And they were used by indigenous communities for leather. They built
leather and meat. Yeah. Because the Native Americans didn't keep livestock other than horses, which also horses they also sort of tamed. They rounded them up and tamed them and would ride them. But the bison were like their cattle, if you quote unquote. So they'd kill what they needed. They'd dry the meat, preserve it in various ways. They'd turn the skins to make clothes, shoes, tents, etc. And they didn't need anything from anybody. As in, they were completely outside the capitalist world. And the way America was set up, the capitalism couldn't abhors anyone outside that system. That's why even in Kenya today, all our government and conservation policies are against pastoralism, because pastoralism doesn't need capitalist structures. So they decided that these people, And again, these people knew the terrain. It wasn't easy to fight them. They were aggressive, strong warriors. So the easiest way is to starve them. But they have this abundant bison. So you cannot starve them until you wipe out the bison. All 60 million of them. I mean, again, folklore. There were herds so big that trains would stop for 2 days as the herd is crossing the rails. Yeah. They wiped them out. And there's still pictures you see on the web of a man standing on a 50-foot hill mountain of bison skulls. It's disgusting. It's unbelievable. And you can imagine what the environment was like. North America does not have any animal like a hyena, that eats dead stuff. You can imagine the carcasses rotting on the prairies. The stench, disease, flies, bacteria, that kind of thing.
There was even an article where I saw they were even saying we will need to call people from the UK to come for a hunting expedition so that we can wipe them all out.
Yeah. And that's why even today, hunting in the US is not an elite activity the way it is here. Here it's the rich king. There ilikuwa kibarua. When you are broke, those days, the broke layabouts, you buy a gun, go shoot some bison and come get your payment. The proof they'd use to getting payment was tongues.
They take out the tongue.
They take out the tongue. Now you come with 100 tongues. Now you see I've killed 100.
And you've left the carcass
Yeah.
to rot.
Yeah. A whole buffalo, that a carcass that big. Yeah.
That is wastage of life.
It's wastage of life. It's wastage of life on a level that most human societies philosophically cannot fathom.
Yeah, I can't. My mind, in fact, I would read then I reach a point where I say, no, let me continue tomorrow because this thing is so bad.
Yeah.
And these are the people coming to tell us to conserve animals.
These are the people now purporting to be leading the movement to save the world, to save biodiversity, to save our wildlife. The people leading this move are coming from that society, are coming from those universities, are coming from those countries, and coming to teach this to us who are living with these megafauna and forests and natural resources. It's really the height of absurdity, but it's been normalized through the propaganda of wildlife movies, David Attenborough's documentaries. The white guy is always saving some animal from some black people.
Okay, now back to the article.
This
thing is so bad. My heart just
yeah, it's really difficult to deal with.
This cruelty to animals they also meted out the same cruelty to the indigenous peoples of the US. And Patrick Wolfe talks of, and in fact, I mean, the cruelty is just so horrifying. But Patrick Wolfe talks of natives and settlers. So what are those categories? I mean, what do they mean in the Western imagination?
These are categories that came up in settler colonies. These are where settlers basically took over the running of the country and needed to eliminate or suppress the indigenous populations in order to succeed. In order to succeed in ruling these countries and producing whatever they wanted to produce. And so it was very clear cut from those countries. So settler colonialism is a concept that grew out of what went on in those countries. These were all very small populations. Native Americans were very few. Aborigines were very few in Australia. They still are, as were the Maoris in New Zealand, and as were the Inuit people in Greenland. There were very few, very small numbers of people.
So
and
why
very light. That's why they were small enough numbers that you could actually set out to kill them and suppress their populations. Denmark had been forcibly applying forced birth control on Inuit people until the 1990s. The mainland of Australia, some Aborigines survived because it's just so vast, and there were so few, and they were so good at negotiating the landscape that you couldn't find them all. So you could kill them. You could only fence them off, oppress them in various ways, and this kind of thing. The Inuit people were also very few, good at negotiating that landscape. So the Danish picked birth control as their method of suppressing the native population. So it was something that was done to small native populations who could be suppressed, killed, control their birth, steal their babies, and raise them as white people. You know, like the schools in Canada. Even there are native Australians of my age. I met a man of my age who's still looking for his relatives because he was taken away from home as a baby. He's still finding relatives. And it's tragic to think about it. But when they came to Africa, we were too many. You couldn't kill us all. So it complicated things. And then they're still trying, even to this day.
Yes.
There's still this obsession with the fertility of African women. Bill Gates, all these Nature Conservancy, all these organizations are trying to find a way to understand and limit it. So here they had to take a more nuanced approach, and looking at the situation of Kenya, they had to create identities. The settler colonialism had to manifest as a creation of identities in terms of tribe, ethnicity, even these things of this tribe is like this, the Somalis are like this, the Kikuyus are like this, the Luos are like this. This is the manifestation of settler colonialism here, is the allocation of tribes to places, to behaviors, to even professions. Even professions. Yeah, it's in old military manuals, like the Wakamba are very good soldiers. So I've heard that Kamba youths in mid 20th century would be literally grabbed physically and thrown into trucks and taken to army recruitment. There was a lot of forced recruitment, forced conscription, especially during Second World War II. So this was allocation of duties and even professions. I'm not sure how the railways thing worked, but railways was all about Luos. Luos were employed in what we call the Reru, and in huge numbers, whether some as electricians, some as builders, some as carpenters, some as whatever, engineers, and this kind of thing. So that's how settler colonialism manifested here, in that it has created a settler class that thinks, behaves, and defines themselves the way the colonialists defined them.
Okay. Now, remember when I first contacted you about the article, I asked, so during colonialism, were the Africans in Kenya natives, or let me just rephrase.
Yeah. During colonialism, when they came, we were the natives.
Yes.
But suddenly it was not sustainable because the settlers were too few and the natives were too many. So they needed to manifest the settler colonialism they needed to create some black settlers. So take a black person, you define him. You are a Luo. You are meant to be educated in this manner. You are meant to do this job. In order to do this, you've created a settler. You are a Kikuyu. You are meant to be a businessman. We can license you to trade in bottled alcohol. You can build this business empire. You're a settler. You are a Maasai chief. We are paying you an allowance. We need you to move your people off this land so whites can take it. And in return to that, we've given you also a big chunk for your own. You're a settler. So this is how they manifested these things. Some were clergy. Even clergy there were some who were trained as clergymen. The settlers, it's your duty to pick the bright kids from this area and take them to mission schools, turn them into Christians, good professionals, etc. Those become the settlers. So eventually those who fell through the cracks, because they were in Kikuyu land, it was maybe because they were descended from Mau Mau people. Those were left out there. Those who are now left out there as natives. But the settler class expanded to include the blacks who were taken to national schools, who were taken into the army, who were taken into civil service, who were taken into the clergy, and taken into the high business class and that kind of thing, and taken into politics as well. I mean, Lancaster House, the colonial government picked settlers from the blacks and took them to Lancaster House and told them, you, John Keane, will be the leader of those people. You, so-and-so, will be the leader of this. You, Moi, will be the leader of this. And that's how it happened. They were just manifesting settler. They needed more settlers.
But you're talking about the people at independence, now when the British had seen that they have to go.
Yeah.
During colonialism, what did that structure mean? Just explain. When
they
the British are
this.
educating Africans, they don't want a competition. In fact, they had said they don't want Africans to learn English. That's what they had said.
Yeah, that was the original plan.
Yeah.
To do it the way they did in Australia. Just beat these guys down, shoot them, kill them. But then they found on the ground, this thing is not easy.
Yeah.
This country is vast. These people are many.
Yes.
There are many. You can't take them all. You try, the detention comes in central Kenya, like, there are too many. We can't detain them all. And they're intelligent, they're learning. Some of them are working for us, so they're learning our language.
Yes.
My cook, I can't speak to my cook in Somali or whatever. So I have to teach him English, and he's teaching his brother English. I want him to read recipe books. I have to teach him how to read. Missionaries, I want him to read the Bible. I have to teach him how to read. So they could not have servants to serve them hand and foot and live the royal life they wanted without creating, educating people to work for them. And this educated class would be problematic if you didn't make them settlers.
Meaning if you didn't give them certain...
If you just taught him how to read and didn't teach him how to think like you, that guy might kill you.
Oh.
You need to make him believe what you believe.
But they were telling us, they were saying we should not learn arts. We should only do TVET.
Now you see the arts. TVET is very easy to control.
Yes.
But the art is art. Once someone is steeped in the art, you'll hear an interesting song being sung by some lady fetching water at the river. You learn what that song about, and people learn so much. You see, African cultural norms, traditions, etc., rested in folklore, songs, stories, and all this. And these are arts. Now, how do you start teaching people that this dance is important, but that one isn't? Once someone loves music, they love music, all music.
Yes.
Once someone loves literature, they love all literature. And then this stuff, African culture and African beliefs start bleeding into the educational system. And this is what created a problem. And then once people start learning about history, how do you start teaching them about how the wonderful Queen Elizabeth was crowned in 1953? So you want him to know that about 1953, yet you don't want him to know about his grandfather who was also hanged in 1953. It becomes very difficult. When you start teaching history, people learn the good and the bad. You learn the good and the bad. And the British have tried very hard to separate history from by calling the good history and calling the bad the past.
The past.
Yeah. But it's very difficult. That can't fly. That can't fly. Eventually, people learn. You know, once you open someone's mind into looking into history, starts looking into all sorts of different things, and we learn. And that's the problem that even our government is grappling with now, that we have too many people who are, for them, there are too many people who know too much.
Yes.
Paralyze this mind in carpentry.
In fact,
so
actually,
he doesn't read. Yeah.
I hear that when Jubilee came into power, the one thing they were saying is that how could 844 have opened itself doors? How could it have opened the doors to so many people? So the issue was to start reducing the number of people who are proceeding to university. And that's where you started seeing these myths of Matiang'i, oh, they are cheats, they are what, and failing them. I think there was one time only 11% of students passed KCSE.
Yeah. Because it's important. If you look at settler colonialism projects like the tea estates, so you want these kids to do TVET and learn how to operate that tea plucking machine, but you don't want them to do history and know that their grandfathers were violently ejected from this land where the tea is growing. You see, so that's what TVET does. You become a technician, not a practitioner. You are an expert at making the tea plucking machines, and you are from there, but you are excluded from learning how your grandfather was ejected and exiled to Gwasi to make room for that tea estate where you are now making the tea plucking machine. So that's why there's so much need for TVET. There's all these funny things. We want to be like Singapore, we want to be like Korea, we want to be, because we think those countries got where they are because of TVET. No, they didn't.
Or even Germany. They say Germany
it
is because of
TVET. Yes. Probably the only area where Germany's prowess rivals its engineering prowess is philosophy.
And classical music.
Yes, classical music and philosophy. That's the only area where their prowess rivals their engineering prowess. So it's a very dumb sort of approach, sort of primitive. It's very primitive way of thinking. And the worst thing is that this primitivity is pushed by professors.
Debu just explained that. Because
the people pushing us not to learn hardest are professors. Do you remember the late Magoha saying arrogantly how he's appalled that he couldn't find a plumber in Siaya to fix his toilet or whatever in his house? Should go and get a plumber from somewhere else, then go to Kisumu. So that's why he's pushing for TVETs. Yet he himself went very, very advanced studies in medicine. The one who pushed for the diminishing of the humanities was a PhD in humanities.
In
Matiang'i.
humanities, yeah.
Yes, yes. So we've got.
What is this thing that makes people want? Is it simply wanting to block the door to where you are, or what is that? How can you be complaining about the same thing you are trained in?
It's the primitive obsession with identity.
Oh.
I did a PhD to be called a doctor, not to know more about literature. That's why so many PhDs in Kenya today, you can talk to them for months or even know them for years, and you'll never know, from what he says, you'll never know what it is he studied for his PhD or her PhD. Because they never talk about it. They were aiming for the prefix on the name.
Yeah, in fact, there was a time some students came, and I've had about 2 students tell me that, and I get so disappointed. They say, how does it feel to be called doctor? I'm like, seriously?
It's all about identity. It's all about identity, not about knowledge, not about learning more, not about teaching. In fact, people think it's an attainment, like learning ends there.
You got the paper.
You've got the paper. You got the paper. And many people say, mi masomo nilimaliza.
There's a part where, I sent you a section of Define and Rule by Mamdani, where he says that the identity of the native was supposed to be fixed. Or is it Wolfe who said that? One of them.
It's Mamdani.
It's supposed to be fixed in geography. You are born there. There's nothing else to know about you except that you came from there. So even it's the same way the degrees are functioning.
Yes.
You have a title. Who cares what
PhD
you know?
box.
Yeah. Who cares what you know?
So now if I go saying that schools should be shut down in this place, it's okay because I've got a PhD that entitles me to say that.
Oh, you don't have to make sense, logical sense.
You don't have to make sense. You don't have to make sense. Because you have achieved.
See, that's how the whole colonial project is. They come, they tell us, like those carbon credits, they tell us something that doesn't make sense, but because they said it, we have to accept it.
Yes. In the conservation world, it's particularly rampant. Particularly rampant. People who know nothing. People who know nothing say things, but because of who he is, it's his identity, then it doesn't need to make sense. The black people with PhDs will work their fingers to the bone to make that nonsense work, because they are just technicians. They are being told, make this work, do it, make it look good. That's how professors, you go to KICD, top staff, they're all PhD professors and all that, and they are working day and night to destroy what we have as an education system, which wasn't perfect, but was working. As we speak right now, junior secondary schools are stand still.
But I said so. I
saw that thing and I said, hey,
it would happen.
Because they achieved the identity of professors. Now what they say doesn't have to make sense.
Hey, okay. Now back to Patrick Wolfe. God, my head is hurting. Okay, Patrick Wolfe says that settler colonialism is a structure. Who are the
Yes,
settlers?
the settlers are the middle class. Okay, no, the upper class are the settlers. The middle class are aspiring settlers. The structures are our industries, our tourism industry, quote unquote, our tea industry, our coffee industry, our stock market, carbon trading. These are the structures. Because you'll find that everything, all policies that are being put in place, you cannot find a Kenyan reason, good or bad, for any policy. It's always to meet certain export market, to attract investment, to attract tourism, to export labor. We are even educating our kids to fit into factories somewhere. We are not, even as much as we are pushing TVET, we are not developing industry. We are pushing TVET so that they can go work in Qatar. We are not developing places there for them to work.
Okay.
So right now, we are a settler colony. The settler are our so-called political class. The elite, the so-called captains of industry. Those are the settlers. Then we come lower, we have the middle class. These are aspiring settlers. The people who are economically below that level or mentally don't think like that. Those are the natives.
Oh, that's why you guys call yourself errant native.
Yeah. My thinking doesn't fit into any of that.
Oh.
So
that was kind of the same thing that the Europeans in the US were thinking, that these people don't think like us, so
we need to eliminate them.
So
we need to eliminate them. Yeah.
My God.
So even now, it aspires to eliminate the natives, but it's just impossible because we are in the information age. We have social media. And how do you eliminate ideas? The natives, especially in Kenya, are more difficult because the natives are ideas. It's their thoughts and all that. So it's hard to eliminate thought. It's hard to eliminate what people write, what people think, what people say. And that's the challenge they're facing right now. But settler colonialism it's reached its sell-by date. It can't, it's crumbling. It's crumbling under the weight of its own nonsense.
So there's a part in Wolfe's article, because I want to come to culture, because this thing has really been confusing. There's a part in Wolfe's culture where Wolfe's article where he says that even though the settlers are trying to exterminate the natives, they want to keep the native artifacts, names, and just a few, maybe a few natives themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's how they distinguish themselves from Europeans from elsewhere.
Yeah.
So what's that?
That is settler colonialism's fascination with their fascination with culture is they want to acquire it. Just like their illness with wildlife, like it bugs them that there's just an elephant walking by there and it's going and it's disappearing into the forest. He needs to fence it in, shoot it, or do something to it, take its baby and put it in a petting zoo. With culture is dynamic.
Yes.
But they've struggled to make culture static. They start saying there's something they call African culture, it's called Maasai culture, Kikuyu culture. And then when you look at them, the what is demonstrated to you as Kikuyu culture is a time warp of what Kikuyu culture was in the 1950s when Louis Leakey or whoever it is picked those things. And culture is dynamic. And that's why even our museums struggle, because they're set up as static boxes of culture. And you talk of Luo culture, even in my lifetime, when I was a child, there was no such thing called Ohangla, that music that's so popular now. It's there now. And it's definitely Luo culture. And so our challenge is to treat culture as a living thing, but we're trying to treat it the way settler colonists treated it as. That's why they loot artifacts. They loot an artifact and go to Europe and say, oh, this is Nigerian culture. Those bronzes, Benin bronzes, they loot them. They looted all sorts of artifacts from the tombs of kings in ancient Egypt. And they say that's Egyptian culture. There's nothing like that in Egypt in the last 2,000 years. Those are things from 4,000 and 5,000 before. And that's our challenge with the culture. We must separate culture from artifacts, because in Africa, our culture was not static. Artifacts are non-living, inanimate objects.
Products.
Our culture was living. Ethnicity was fluid. There was so much intermarriage between Luos and Kisis, Luos and Luyas,
and
Kikuyus and Masais, Kambas and Masais.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so when you try and define a Luo and put him into a box, I mean, I've got friends who come from Maseno, near Maseno School there. And you know, that area is very rocky. There's not much land. And families had many kids. They grew up, and some literally went down the hill and became Luos. These Luyas just went down the hill and became Luos. So you actually have a Luya guy who is brother from the same mother and father is a Luo, because there was not enough land for him to stay in Mabungu. So he went down to Laimbo and they became Luos. And it's likewise with visits, whether it's war, whether it's trade. Some women, some men would settle and find a spouse, and ethnicity was something you practice. So I define myself as Luo, and we sing Luo traditional songs, and we play Luo music, and we eat Luo foods, and so I'm a Luo. The guy who stayed up there is very much a Luya, even though he may be my brother. But settler colonialism seeks to define these things in boxes. And that's why we fail so badly.
Oh, and that's why the politicians, they are settlers, because what they want is those communities to be frozen.
Those boxes are their political currency. They are the settlers. These politicians, they are the settlers. It's impossible to trade in people. So what you can trade in you can trade in a tribe, in that box. And like we were discussing earlier, like the facts get lost in these boxes. When a few days ago there were people celebrating Raila Odinga's birthday, which is a celebration of basically the Odinga family political gravitas. And they chose to go and do it at the Tom Mboya Memorial. Yet Tom Mboya was the nemesis of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. He slammed the political door on Jaramogi Oginga Odinga at the Limuru Kanu Conference, 1966 or something. But that is all lost, because those are facts, and Mboya was a person. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was a person, and they had their differences. But Luo, in this context, is a box.
It's the geography. Those from
it's the geography. Yeah, we are trading geography. It's a corral, like a boma. And you are told that it's actually very insulting for someone to suggest that you are such sort of to reject that sophistication of a society, that they cannot have different views. They much talked about Luya unity. politicians are also saying, oh, the Mulembe people are so, they are not united and all that. That Luhya disunity is the height of civilization.
Yes.
It means Luhyas can support 8 different parties and no one will fight. And his neighbor supports this, even his wife supports another one. And that is the height of civilization. And politicians hate it.
Hate it.
Every election cycle, you see someone coming. I want to be the Luhya spokesman. You see Atwoli saying Luhya should be reunited. So Wetangula is saying this. No. That is the height of civilization. That is sophistication.
It's the refusal to be frozen where you come
in
from.
In a
place.
Yes, or even in a mind space.
Or place doesn't have to be just geographical.
Yes. There's no this is, I don't know, zone, whatever party zone. And there's no violence. Because people can decide, me, I don't like that guy. And me, I like that guy.
So, God. So what happened with the Central? Because, see, they were fighting the settlers. And now they've been boxed into this thing.
Unfortunately, it followed the same path that the so-called war on corruption in Kenya followed, where we often tell ourselves we are fighting for justice, for transparency, etc., but we are fighting for inclusion. I want to be part of that. I want to eat from that plate. It's bad as long as I haven't started. I mean, we talk about corruption, but you see parents walking around with their kids' result slip, looking to pay someone something to get into a school. There are schools that are known to get leakage, and parents seek to get their kids in those schools. There are many grades. Parents always complain that my kid got a low grade, and their parents genuinely whose kid got a grade higher than, your kid is not, your kid is like B, C+ material. Suddenly he's got an A. You are just saying, hey, me God. Eh? You don't want. So that's a problem. So they fought the settlers. And then now you want to be settlers. Because it's all, even during the fighting, hey, their stuff looked nice. Their life looked nice. Eh? Their life looked nice. They look like they were having fun. Why can't I be like that? I want to be like that. Because as long as a hierarchy, it's almost like a regiment, military regiments. People, the junior officers can be bullied by the majors and the colonels and all that. But the system works in a way that when you get to be a major, you hate what the major is doing to you, but you are working hard to be a major yourself. And you aspire to be a major, because then you'll wield that sort of power over other people. So it's a conflicted, it's being conflicted in a way. It's very hard to divorce yourself from the need for inclusion. That's where the intellectual work is. I want to bring down this structure. I'm not fighting to climb the structure. It's like what's going on with the deputy president and the coffee industry.
Yeah.
He took up this agenda with so much alacrity. The coffee industry is part of the settler colonialism structure in Kenya. It should be just destroyed. Like if it was a house, wake up, petrol, burn the thing down and start afresh. But he went around, he's traveling to Colombia, traveling to Italy, traveling where he's trying to beg to be included, for the farmers to be included in the structure.
What?
Yeah. It's like if you have a slave plantation and you've gone around begging for better beddings in the slave quarters. No, you should be burning down the plantation. So that's why it got to a point where he even said, like, I gave a statement that alluded to the fact that we can't bring down these. He's not managed to do what he set out to do.
We quit.
Yeah, That's what we should do. That's what we should do. Tear it down, build another one as per your own needs and aspirations. This one was never built for us. It was never built for us. The tea industry, the coffee, it was never created for us. It was created to serve empire. So instead of tearing it down and building a more republican structure, we are seeking to be included in the imperialism. And the highest echelons of our government can't get this.
So
we failed to understand that simple statement from Wolfe. Settler colonialism is not an event, it's a structure. We think it was an event between 18-something and 1963. And we think it's now over.
So this attitude of, oh dear, this attitude of the settler towards the colony, that everything is mine, I have a right to it, the natives have to accept, and I can't let life just go on, anything dynamic, like wildlife, culture, I cannot let it go on, I must trap it and contain it.
I must acquire it.
I must acquire it.
Yes.
That's what our politicians do.
Yes, yes. Even they don't campaign.
They can't even let a Uhuru Park be. They can't let it.
No. Just people lying under trees there telling stories. Kids running around with football. No. Go and put some stupid wreck of a plane there. That thing is such an eyesore. We can't let it be. We can't let it be.
We can't let people enjoy. We can't let
people
walk. We can't let kids play. We now, like this, how politicians are starting tournaments.
Yeah. We can't even pay the prize money by M-Pesa. You have to bring boxes of wads of cash in your hand like this.
With the security.
Yeah, some heavily built men there.
Hey.
We have to acquire the minds and hearts of these youth. That's why even playing grounds are grabbed left, right, and center. What do you mean? You can't just have kids playing. Yeah.
How are they enjoying themselves? That's not, and I'm not.
A jobless guy can't afford lunch, just chilling there.
I can't.
No. We have to fence it and put a gate.
That's a spiritual problem.
It's a spiritual problem. It is a spiritual problem. That's exactly what it is. Because the ability to even go around like keep the law of wildlife here and just see elephant walking by and going wherever it's going, and maybe take a picture and say, wow, nice, I saw an elephant today. That's a high spiritual level. Not to want to bother with where that elephant is going or where it came from. Just to be happy that your paths crossed. That's a high spiritual level. People with spiritual hollowness, in fact, he wants to fence it in because he imagines everyone else wants to shoot it the way he does.
It's, by the way, that everybody's depraved.
Yeah, everyone wants to shoot it because he wants to shoot it, so he thinks everyone else wants to shoot it. So now he wants to save it. And ironically, he wants to save it so he can shoot it.
Okay. So I'm really interested because I'm really bothered by this culture thing, the way we talk about culture in the academy. So we are not saying, God, I don't even know the question to ask. Let me just open up. What does it mean for culture and education, and why are Kenyan academics so paralyzed What about the settler colonial logic has made us so paralyzed intellectually?
Because we think our degrees are not, you see that thing we say the power to read and all that. We have no idea what that means. The power to read means now go and interpret. Go and read and interpret. A doctorate in philosophy means, regardless what the field you did it, whether you did it in wildlife ecology or in literature and all that, you have now been licensed to philosophize about wildlife or about literature or about whatever it is. You can now you can now actually think about it in a philosophical manner and share ideas or propose ideas about it. Here, and that the definition of that is like the academy is the house, your parents' house. You've been raised, you've got a PhD, now your parents go out into the world now and make a difference. As we think the degree is a license to climb up now to be a senior member of this house. It's not to grow up. We don't grow up. We achieve PhD, but we don't grow up. We don't want to explore other people's ideas, propose ideas of our own and all that. We actually think this PhD now should be a license to be employed and given orders by someone else and just paid more money. They just paid more money. It means it's like what we alluded to about polishing shoes. It's all about polishing shoes. Now, because I got a PhD, I should be polishing a very senior person's shoes, but I should still be polishing shoes. I shouldn't be making
questioning
shoes.
Whether I should polish shoes in the first place.
Yeah, or I shouldn't even be designing new type of shoes, but I should be polishing shoes that's already been made by someone. And that's why most people even undertaking PhD studies now, they don't even understand why they should come up with ideas of their own. They're trying to steal an idea from Mordecai, because he doesn't intend to go anywhere. He doesn't intend to create anything. So why should he bother himself with an idea? That's why he can even go and ask someone to write for him a proposal, because he's not interested in discovering anything. He's interested in passing the exam and defending that thing and getting the DR.
It's an identity.
It's an identity. He's looking for an identity. In Kenya, we hardly understand what these things are. That's why we create even stupid laws like saying for someone to run for governor, he has to have a certain degree. We've just created an avenue for corruption. Someone who's got enough millions to run for governor can walk into any place and corrupt any university in the world, and he'll get a degree.
Even Oxford, by the way. See,
yes,
call it a grant.
Yes. I remember Mwenje, the late, went to the US and came back with some degree.
It's an identity. It's
an identity.
It's about a stamp on place. It can be a geographical, cyber, what do you call it? Intellectual, but you're stamping yourself somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're not, it's like you're not a human being. It's not what you do, what you think, whatever.
It's like a certification as a settler. It's almost like the club membership. The club like Muthaiga Club never accepted black members until 1975, 12 years after independence. Yet when they did, there was a line of blacks waiting to join this place where they were not wanted. And that's a microcosm of settler colonialism in Kenya. We didn't hate imperialism. We just wanted to be imperialists. We fought to become imperialists. We didn't fight to bring down the empire.
Yeah.
Like the carbon trading I'm talking about now, I keep making noise about.
Yeah.
Instead of banning this nonsense from this fraudulent thing from our country, our government keeps looking for ways to be involved in it. They came up with a licensing system for it. Our president got appointed to the board of a carbon trading organization. He's now appointed a carbon trader as chancellor for the university. So then what next? We don't even know. This is a settler colonialist structure. So now we are looking at each other wondering what next.
Is it that maybe the more we hate something, the more affirmed they feel that the natives hate this, so I'm going to do it because I don't know.
No, I think it's
pathology in it.
I think the pathology is pathology of fear. Nothing scares Kenyan middle class and even Kenya government as much as more than the concept of creating a new idea.
Creativity, life.
Yeah, we are terrified. Go benchmark it. Go to Singapore to benchmark. Go to Finland. Then you come and tell us that was done in Finland. Go to Germany. Go to when have we ever created any idea? I cannot find a Kenyan genesis for any government policy. Even the crops we grow are because we've been told so and there's demand for. And that it's a pathology of fear. Like you're terrified of creating any new idea, and you're by extension you're terrified of anyone who actually looks like he or she has new ideas. That person is scary.
There's a part where Patrick Wolfe says they hated the Native Americans because of their potential to civilize, to be, okay, of course, yes, it's potential in quotes, but they couldn't stand the idea that these people can invent, they can do great things, so they would eliminate them.
They are thriving without needing anything from us or us. And today, bring that idea to Kenya. This is why all our systems, government, conservation, natural resource management, hates pastoralism. Because this guy is out there with this herd of 2,000 sheep and maybe 50 cows. This is a few million shillings he has right here in Azaa Kila Wiki. When he needs money for something, he sells 2 sheep and all that. That's why even this tax was recently increased, that purported to impose tax on everything, even up to a chicken. Capitalism abhors anything that exists outside its remit, outside itself. It can't stand that. And here I can use capitalism interchangeably with settler colonialism. How can you exist out there? But you're raising camels and just drinking their milk and eating your goats. And when you take your kid to school, you sell 2 goats, you take him to school. You're not waiting for any salary at the end of the month. I can't deduct housing levy from you. Like, that's abhorrent. Yet it is environmentally sustainable, it is food secure, it is economically sustainable. It does not need anyone. I mean, you don't have enough for anyone, but you want everyone to need you. If that person got rid of all his camels and needed food from you, could you feed him?
No.
No. You couldn't feed him.
That's a spiritual disease.
It's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's spiritually destructive, like the passenger pigeon story. Those birds didn't need food from you. They were not killing your children. They were not spreading disease. They were not doing anything. But you just hated the fact that they're there in flocks of billions flying across the continent. Then next month they're flying back. Like, what the hell? Kill those damn things. Where are they going? Someone say, I found out where they're nesting. Verse 20. Go and finish them. You can't have these things just flying back and forth like this.
That's our politics. Steven,
that's our politics.
It's like
that's our politics.
You have to go to a marketplace. People are doing their thing, but you
Hey,
have to go so that everybody now stops what they're doing and comes around you.
hey,
You can't let life go on.
A family has been bereaved. You can't let them just bury their mother.
Yes.
You have to go there
And
you
you
have to
must
go
be
there.
greeted. You must be allowed a time to
Yes,
talk, and you
a
must
lot
talk
of
about
time.
your own thing.
Yes. Then you go and talk about something like housing levy, and if someone has died here, you have to go there and talk maybe about I don't know, the judiciary. I've been at a funeral where the body had been taken to the graveside. You are the concluding part. The body was about to be lowered in, then a helicopter was heard. I won't name the politician who came, but the body was moved back to the podium where it was. It was moved back.
Yeah.
At that point, I left.
There's no respect for...
No. Not at all. And this is such a deep spiritual problem.
It is.
And we are struggling so much to adopt this problem. We never had this problem. We are trying to fence natural areas away from the people who used to collect medicine and honey and graze animals and collect firewood. I see people, my friends from pastoralist communities who are highly educated, and I know every penny of their fees was paid from livestock earnings. They're currently fighting livestock production in favor of tourism and beadwork. None of them had their fees paid from tourism or beadwork. It was paid from livestock. And now that they are educated, gotten their identity, now they are fighting the thing that educated them. It's a spiritual problem. Someone who is running nuclear power plants has come to tell them that these cows belonging to his father are causing global warming.
What?
Yes. Yes. I see pastoralists working for conservation organizations that are coming from America with its everything, military industrial complex, coming to tell us that livestock here are causing global warming. And that message is being propagated by people educated with money from livestock.
It's our education system. Okay, I don't even know.
It's settler colonialism.
It's settler colonialism. So it seeps into your education, your
yes,
culture,
livelihood,
your thinking. And so all these things, you sort of harness them to build the same idea.
Yeah.
Hey, that one is very hard because ironically, that's a spiritual problem.
Yeah. And it cannot be addressed in any way by any of the STEM subjects.
No, it can't. It can't even be addressed by a solution.
No.
Hey, we are going to have to leave this conversation here with living Kenyans. We just leave it open. There's no solution here.
Mujipange. The things I'm talking about here, no one taught me. No one offered me a solution. I didn't grow up anywhere where no one else has been. I didn't read anything that other people can't read. There's no secret that anyone gave me. But for everyone, for the sake of himself, herself, and their children, itabidi ujipande.
Even the education one. In fact, I saw in the comments on the Spice FM interview, some people were angry because I didn't give a solution. They wanted, I don't know.
They want you to tell them, go to certain bookshop, buy this book.
Yes.
And that will sort you out. Or download this app, go to Google Play Store, Anna. You have to
That's
think.
Spiritual problem.
Yeah. There's a kid I support in school and is now gone from 3. And they wrote this note they write to parents and they said, we need X amount. It was about 10K for uniform, for new uniforms. And there's a parents WhatsApp group, and I wrote to the WhatsApp group, what's the 10K for uniforms for? Can you give us a breakdown? Whether it's for 2 trousers, 2 shirts. There was no breakdown. It was just an amount they wanted from parents. And someone sidebar told me, asked me, why do you complain so much? And we know you are one of those who can afford. I don't, that's precisely why I'm complaining. For those who can't, there are people here who can't afford but are too scared to say anything. And as far as me, I'm not this kid. I see the uniform every time he goes. If his trouser is torn, I buy him a new one. That's why I'm saying you can't tell me now that he needs new uniform. I know if he doesn't have a shirt or doesn't have shoes or doesn't have trousers. So who are you to decide? And what's this for 10K? You also buy clothes. You know what cost, what clothes cost. But that's the thing. That's the thing. If sometimes you even speak out and people say they'll run over you. If you keep quiet, they'll run over you. But ours is a spiritual problem. It's a deep, deep spiritual problem. And people don't even recognize it as such. That's why they go to see these quasi-spiritual places looking for solutions.
Oh, so that's what the preachers are taking advantage of.
Yes. Come, I've got a solution.
Oh.
Even us now, if we claim to be peddling solutions and we gave people a till number, pesa itakuja sana.
By the way.
Yeah, people think there's no solution. You have to think for yourself. If you ask for this money, you have to ask, why are you asking me for this money? You don't just pay and then cry, hey, things are bad. No. That 10K, me, I've got other things to do with 10K. Not to pay for uniform for a kid who I know has uniform.
But it's linked to, I'm trying to link it to this idea that you're saying, how the settler colonialists cannot let anything go. It can't let anything be.
Yeah. And you see, the settler colonialists always had the so-called solution because they play the long game, and he has to have solutions because spiritually he's hollow. But us, there's a part in our psyche that's occupied by spiritualism.
Yes.
So by definition, so many of our solutions, if you can call them that, are spiritual. And yet now, people with spiritual capability are looking for mechanical solutions. And that's why things have ground to a halt.
Oh.
It's like when you asked questions about CBC and Kinamagoa kept going on. The train has left the station. There's no reverse gear. Right now, they've reached the end of the track at junior secondary and the train has stopped. You asking where the train is going, then they're saying it's leaving. You asking, but where is it going? No, it's left. And you sasa imefika mwisho wa reli.
I don't know whether you noticed, from around the last week of Christmas, there were so many billboards advertising British curriculum schools. I know.
Yes.
So it means that people are jumping ship.
Imefika mwisho wa reli.
But the funny thing was, somebody told me in a private school that people left their school for CBC because they were convinced by the flowers.
Yes,
that
they were told the train is leaving. In fact, if you get left behind, utatabika sana. My kid won't get a job in Qatar. Wacha niingie CBC. Imefika mwisho wa reli.
Yeah, now the British schools have come, which was what I predicted, that the private schools would get a windfall from this mess.
Even private schools are just changing to GCSE.
Yeah, or they're saying we offer both curricula.
We offer both. We offer both. In fact, now if you want to change, you just come from this class to the other one across the corridor. You don't even go far. That's the disaster we are in now.
Then preachers are going to make a lot of money. We are going to get more cults. That one.
Yeah.
If people don't want to deal with the problem, there are Kenyans who will go to cults to be insulted.
Yes. And you see some of these cults even now, if you go and see the bizarre things that go on in those places, you realize, a discerning person will realize, people have not gone there for spiritual nourishment. They've gone for entertainment, distraction.
Yes.
Yeah, they've gone for a performance. Bizarre, funny, whatever, but just wanted a performance.
And in fact, actually, we were supposed to talk about fascism. I think what's so entertaining about these kinds of evangelists, psychopoliticians, is that they are being brazen and they're just being foolish in public and they don't care.
Yes.
You can come and wield a gun. Of course, it rattles us and it offends us. But the fact that you don't care is what makes people like you.
And it's very attractive to people. Very attractive.
Then we just make peace with these cults. Kenyans, let them go to cults. I don't know why we are making noise.
Yeah. Let them go to cults.
What else is there?
So let him go. But they went there and then they're jumping on stage or falling down at his speaking tongues. He goes there, and by the time he comes from there, he has
those demons.
He has released whatever it is. Yeah. You won't beat people at home.
And this is why people are offering themselves for abuse by these psychos.
Yes. Willingly.
What?
Willingly.
Maybe we finish. There was something you said about fascism before we met. I mean, before today. Because we were talking about the way if politicians don't want culture to be vibrant and free, they have to capture it.
Yeah.
And close thinking.
Yeah.
And then you tell people, but this is your culture. To be stupid like this is how our culture is.
Yeah.
Trust me, kind of.
Yeah. And the fascism thing is that it's a tool of settler colonialism that seeks to define you by artifacts. Clothing, these are artifacts.
Oh, yes.
Clothing, food, certain drinks, certain behaviors.
Rituals.
Rituals. Yeah, these are artifacts. Some even places that say the sacred shrine there. These are artifacts. And they're very important to settler colonialism and the settler colonialist class, that's our politicians, because they put people in a box. And when you are outside that box, or you think outside that box, suddenly you are another. You are othered by your community. You asked, what's it with you? What's it with you? Why do you say that? I mean, and
you've been frozen, you've been reduced where you were born, or
and
where
packaged,
your parents were born.
And packaged even you're packaged in a school language, even clubs where people go to drink, where people go to eat meat. You are packaged into that thing.
And these hate the other ones.
And once you're in this package, now you are currency. You are used for trade. And then you are now, if you're outside that package, you are the native. And you are the one settler colonialism wants to eliminate.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Give us a good parting shot.
I mean, the native population is growing. I mean, and not by recruitment and giving birth, but there's a growing population that just doesn't care. Maybe they don't have just the time or that they don't care for those boxes. They're interested in maybe making money. They're interested in the arts. They're interested in rapping, drawing, sport, all these other things, and they just don't care. They just don't care. And even you see it even in sport. There's I forget the name. There's a player for Tusker Football Club, the Premier League, who scored a spectacular overhead kick goal the other day, and the announcer couldn't help stating that people said Masais can't play football. The guy is Masai. Mulisema jamii ya Masai hachezi kandanda. Mumeona hiyo? I mean, it was funny, but it shows the sort of boxes we had been put into, and we're just breaking out. We are leaking out. We are breaking out, and people are finding their way. And soon, people will have to be defined by what you are and what you do. This geography and all these things. And questions in the like what they ask in census: what tribe are you? Those boxes are becoming untenable. People don't realize that in the last election, those boxes broke.
They did.
They broke.
But now Kenya Kwanza is trying to put them back together.
Even the ones, and they're the ones who broke them.
And they're the ones who broke them.
Pole sana. We've leaked out. You might put back the boxes, but we've leaked out.
Yeah.
We've leaked out. And I don't know who has the gravitas or resources of any kind to put Kenyans back in boxes again. The boxes broke, we've leaked out. So it's a period of confusion, but ahead here, water or fluid that has leaked out finds its path. It doesn't sit. We'll find our path and we will flow. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope we've given people some food for thought. And
even people who don't have time to read, there is a video of a lecture by Patrick Wolfe. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube, but there's really strong lessons for everybody in there.
Yeah. I'll look for it and put a link.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. It's been great. Let people think, start the new year on a thoughtful note.